TikTok. No thanks, that app's for children. Nothing will ever replace Vine.
Hi! Reader of books here. You can tell because I keep my fully stocked bookshelf in the background of most of my videos. For those of you who are older than like 35, you probably have no idea what Booktok is. It is a portmanteau of the words book and TikTok. I'm sure that a lot of you who aren't on TikTok think that the two words have no business being in the same sentence, let alone the same word.
I downloaded that TalkTik app, and it was nothing but a bunch of teenage girls shaking their asses in bikinis.
So, the TikTok algorithm shows you content that it thinks that you would like to see based on things like your search history and links that you've recently clicked on. So if that sort of thing is what's on your For You page, well, the calls come from inside the house, peepaw. I see people on Tumblr shitting on TikTok constantly, and I'm just like, really, Tumblr? You're going to look down your nose at a social media platform? You? Tumblr? This pretentious tone of, look at these airheaded youths with their viral dances and trending sounds, what a display of low intellect. You sound like a bunch of f***ing boomers. Aren't you running late for your 18th Mish apocalypse? The truth is, there's a corner of TikTok for everyone. You just have to show the algorithm the kind of things that you want to be shown. You want cooking videos? They have that. You want arts and crafts? They have that. You want to listen to a screed about how women should be chained to the kitchen stove, barefoot and pregnant by a Dollar Tree version of Pitbull? Unfortunately, they have that too. As the name would suggest, Book TikTok is the side of TikTok that discusses contemporary literature, shares book recommendations, and where authors can promote their own works. It's usually dominated by young women wearing oversized cardigans, making Pinteresty videos set to folk music, recommending the same 10 books over and over. But there is a modicum of variety in there. You just have to be patient. The kind of book that gets commonly recommended on TikTok has almost become its own subgenre. These kind of stories are referred to as Booktok books, which has almost become a pejorative recently. It's hard to exactly describe a Booktok book. It's not just any book that's mentioned on TikTok, but there's definitely certain attributes that Booktok books have in common. Firstly, Booktok books seem to focus on fairly recent releases. Secondly, the genres that are most common on Booktok are romance, YA, fantasy, and, of course, erotica, though there are niche sub-communities that focus on horror or mystery or what have you. A lot of Booktok books feel like they could have been scripts for romantic comedies, or maybe fanfictions with the serial numbers filed off. In some cases, like The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, they literally are fanfics with the names changed. But basically, a Booktok book is a book that you would see on Booktok. I know, not the most helpful definition. The girlies who know, know. The girlies who don't, probably aren't on TikTok. A lot of TikTok books I see commonly recommended are like short little romantic slice of life stories, what I would consider a beach read. And I'm not knocking beach reads here, but seriously, would y'all please recommend something that is not the literary equivalent of a Hallmark Christmas movie? According to an article in the New York Times, Booktok has been driving Booktok books to the top of bestseller lists since early 2021, maybe even earlier than that. Authors like Taylor Jenkins Reid, Grady Hendrix, Sarah J. Maas, and even Colleen Hooper became overnight sensations thanks to BookTokers showering their books with praise. In 2021, sales in YA were up nearly 70%. And publishers and book distributors have taken note of this. A lot of companies, including Penguin Books and Barnes & Noble, have started their own TikTok accounts to get in on this trend. I feel like every bookstore I walk into nowadays has a Book Seen on TikTok section located near the front door. This is what the kids are into. As one Redditor put it,
if you're under 25, a romance reader, and a TikTok user, you're bound to have encountered Booktok, the site of the app with millions of users that seems to have revitalized a percentage of young women that haven't been this excited to read since it was 2014, and One Direction was kidnapping girls on Wattpad. If you know, you know. I do not know.
I unfortunately do know. After all, we were stuck in our houses during the pandemic, desperate for something to do other than stare at our phones, so why not get into some new books? And why take book recommendations from some stuffy elitist literary critic who isn't hashtag relatable when you could take them from an influencer with whom you feel a personal connection that definitely isn't a one-sided parasocial relationship? Booktok does have its detractors, though. One annoyance people have with Booktok is the fact that influencers don't distinguish a book by its plot anymore, but rather by tropes. This is probably due to the fact that most of these influencers are of a generation that came of age reading fanfics on AO3, where fics are categorized and archived by tropes. I remember when book covers stopped putting summaries of the plot on the back of the jacket and started putting quotes from reviewers instead, and that was frustrating. Like, I don't care what John Q. Smith of Book Magazine thought of this book, I want to know what it's about. So I guess I can kind of understand the frustration with describing books by trope, but also, if you want to know the plot of something, Google is free. Listing tropes can be helpful shorthand in helping a reader decide if the content is something they'd be interested in or not. Some people love enemies to lovers, some people think it's overdone, some people feel uncomfortable with age gaps or mentor-student relationships. Some people don't want to read romance at all. And of course, tropes don't necessarily ensure that the story will be suited to the reader's taste. I've read some stories that checked all the right trope boxes that were god-awful. That doesn't mean they're useless. If you ask, what's the point of tropes, you might as well be asking, what's the point of genre? However, a lot of disdain for Booktok I see is just thinly veiled misogyny. These are just stupid romance novels. They're all the same. You must be a total airhead to read these books and participate in this culture. To quote one op-ed in the Pitt News from last November,
"You're not in your it girl reading for fun, romanticizing my life era. You're becoming functionally illiterate and incapable of reading books that aren't written according to an industry standard, literally informed by a genuine defense of fan fiction."
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. And then in the next paragraph, the author of this article goes on to say that Booktok books are hurting women, actually. I see we still remember the cloak our sexism and feminist jargon method from the 2010 Twilight era. You are the one who just called an entire group of girls who love reading illiterate, but go off, I guess. I will agree, though, that Booktok has encouraged a sort of hegemony in modern literary trends. Like, publishers are going, if this manuscript isn't the coming-of-age teen romance of the year or doesn't launch the next big YA franchise, don't waste my time. Less and less resources are being allocated to books that maybe wouldn't be so popular on Booktok. When the market is flooded with products that are all starting to look and sound the same, it gets harder and harder for any writer to distinguish themselves. Obviously, getting people to read is overall a net positive. Reading anything keeps the brain sharp and active. Also, with 15 billion streaming services and a hot new movie or show that you just have to watch coming out seemingly every day, there's a real danger in letting the written word fall by the wayside. Booktok has, in a way, revitalized the market for books. It's keeping publishing companies in business, writers fed and housed, bookstores open, until Amazon inevitably runs them all out of business. If romantic beach reads are your bread and butter, there is absolutely no shame here. Comfort reading for your own enjoyment is not hurting anyone. You are not a poser for choosing to read Red, White, and Royal Blue over To Kill a Mockingbird. However, if you are feeling intellectually stymied, I would encourage you to branch out. Look into the classics. Peruse a genre you've never tried before. Like I said, Booktok recommendations can feel like they're all the same, but that's when you need to use your media literacy skills and decide whether or not you think a book is right for you. I will admit, I've bought some books recommended from TikTok that were total garbage. Seriously, stop suggesting The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. It is about as clever as an episode of Sherlock. But I've also found some gems. It's trial and error, folks. And eventually the algorithm does get the idea and starts directing you more toward books you might actually like. Eventually, you will stop getting recommendations for f***ing Colleen Hooper. Not to mention that Booktok is important for promoting writers who don't have a huge following or are just starting out, especially writers of color and LGBTQ writers. A lot of these writers don't have the money to pay for marketing, so advertising on their personal social media is the best they can do. And that's the point, right? Getting more voices in the market so every book doesn't feel the same? At some point during high school, due to a combination of having less free time and energy and onset mental illness, I kind of stopped reading for fun, which sucks because I was that kid who brought a book with me everywhere I went. The pandemic and working from home made me want to do something besides stare at a screen during all waking hours. And Booktok was what reminded me of how awesome and immersive books could be. it got me back into reading. So no, Booktok is not all bad. And if you want some of my personal Booktok recommendations, here are a few books that I've really enjoyed. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six, which recently was made into a series on Amazon Prime. The Final Girl Support Group. This one is good if you love horror movies. It's like a love letter to the slasher film. A Lady for a Duke, which is your typical Jane Austen-esque historical romance, but the heroine of the story is a trans woman. All I'm gonna say about this one is men getting pegged. And this is Jeanette McCurdy's autobiography, I'm Glad My Mom Died. Yes, that is Jeanette McCurdy, best known for playing Sam Puckett on iCarly. It's about being a child star and dealing with mental illness and eating disorders and narcissistic moms, but McCurdy keeps this sort of darkly humorous, lighthearted tone all the way through. I mean, it's called I'm Glad My Mom Died, for crying out loud. That's just a few titles. You can always keep up with what I'm reading on Goodreads. The link to my profile will be in the doobly-doo. As always, come see me on social media, check out my Patreon, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.